Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another range report, and today we have another really awesome HK pistol on the table to review. Now this is actually a model that I personally own. However, this example is not mine because this one is a little bit different than my personal example. This is the HK P30SK, but this is the variant 1, which has the LEM trigger in it, otherwise known as the Law Enforcement Module. And so this trigger system is not a double action, single action system like you'll find on most P30s, but it's kind of a hybrid. It's kind of single action and kind of double action. I'm going to show you the difference between this one and my personal example in this video, but it is a subcompact gun designed for concealed carry and based off of the HK P30 line, chambered in 9mm. Now, before I get into the things that I like and don't like about this gun and show off what this trigger is all about, as always, I want to thank the people that make these videos possible. First and foremost is the owner of this really cool HK pistol. He's a local fan and subscriber, and his name is Jack, and he's the second person named Jack to lend guns to the channel, so we call him Jack number 2. So thank you so much, Jack, as always. I also want to thank my Patreon supporters, because through their monthly donations and support, they help keep the lights on around here, and I couldn't do this without them. And if you guys want to join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month, there is a link in the description below, and you guys get to see all of these videos early. And as always, I want to thank my primary sponsor, who always provides the ammunition for these range reports, thus making them financially feasible for me, my good friend Mark from Brownworks. And while I know the pistol we have on the workbench today doesn't take wood panel grips, it is an HK and it's kind of a higher end gun. And if you're here to watch a review on a higher end gun, you probably have a few in your collection. You might have a Colt 1911, a Browning High Power, a CZ75, or a Beretta 92, just to name a few. And you might be looking for that perfect grip company to make you a set of unique and one-of-a-kind grips to really accent that special firearm. Well, I have the perfect grip company for you, Brownworks. Brownworks is a custom grip company making a wide variety of grips for a wide variety of firearms out of a wide variety of exotic woods and materials. Mark, he's an artist. He's a craftsman. He's always coming up with new and innovative features to add to his grips. He can finish these grips in a wide variety of colors. He can apply custom logos and custom engravings and textures. He can apply exotic materials like snakeskin and alligator skin, as well as make these grips out of customized laminate woods. Anything you can imagine, Mark can make. So I'm going to put a link to his website in the comment section below, as well as a coupon code for 10% off your first order. And I'm going to ask you guys to go check out his website and see everything he has to offer. Every grip is made to order and one of a kind and unique. So please make sure to contact Mark and specifically tell him what you are looking for, and I know he'll hook you up. And when you do contact Mark, please tell him the Texas Gun Vault sent you. Alright, so once again, let's talk about the pistol that we will be reviewing today. Once again, this is the HK, or the Heckler Koch P30SK. This is the subcompact variant of the P30 pistol. It is chambered in 9mm. It has a 3.3-inch barrel, and this is the variant 1, which has the LEM trigger, otherwise known as the Law Enforcement Module in it. And essentially, this trigger blends a double action and single action trigger into one. And I think the best way you can describe it is that you get the long double action pull with the weight of a single action pull. And I'm going to show you what this is all about when I show you a close-up side by side with my personal P30SK, which is double action, single action, and we'll do that in just a moment. But this trigger is known to be a very safe trigger, especially for law enforcement agencies, because the hammer is always down. It's supposed to prevent negligent discharges. You would never carry this, and actually you can't, with the hammer back cocked and locked, because there is no safety on this, and the hammer is always down. I think that was the big advantage of this and why law enforcement enforcement agencies really gravitated towards this trigger mechanism. And I've never shot one of these LEM triggers before, so I'm kind of excited to see what they're all about. But before we get to the range and find out how this trigger actually works, as always, I want to talk about the things that I like and don't like. And I always want to start with the positive first. And the first thing about this gun I love is that it's an HK. Even though, as they joke, HK hates you, well, we all love HK. They just make some of the best guns in the world, some of the coolest guns in the world, and some of the most high quality guns in the world. They're just all tacky cool. They're awesome. And even though we wish that they would make other guns available to the civilian market, they don't. But the ones that they do, they always demand a premium. They're always collector pieces, but they're functional collector pieces. I mean, who doesn't love an HK pistol? The next thing about this gun I really like is the grips. Some people call this the Batman grip, and it's the same grip you'll also find on the HK45. They're very modular, so you have a removable backstrap, and they give you a few different backstraps of various sizes in the box. You also can remove the side panels as well. So that is a huge advantage, and you can really tailor this grip to your hands. And even though I'm usually not a big fan of finger grooves, it really works well on this gun. This gun also has an accessory rail, which I think is a huge advantage over its competitor like the Glock 26. And I also love the fact it has the German style magazine release, which is these little flaps on the side of the trigger guard. You don't have a traditional button. And I know this can kind of seem weird if you're not used to them, but I find them to be very natural and ergonomic to use. This gun is also the perfect size for me when it comes to what a subcompact gun should be. It's about the same size as a Glock 26. Any smaller and we start getting into those micro subcompacts, for me, they just don't shoot well and they can kind of hurt. But this is the perfect size for me, and I have larger hands, so I think this gun will ride very well on my side in a holster. So this gun, I think, is just well designed for the concealed carry market. So now let's talk about a couple things about this gun that I don't like. And I think the gripes that I have are pretty much the same gripes many people have. The first thing is the sights. Now, of course, you can change these out, but these are the factory sights, and these are not night sights. There's no tritium in them. And that is because in German law, nobody is allowed to have any radioactive material whatsoever. And tritium, which is H3, 3 atoms of hydrogen, is technically radioactive. And so while we have tritium night sights here in the US, you can't have them in Germany. So when they build these, they have to put on these sights. And to be very honest with you, they're not very good. They do collect a little bit of light, but they don't have the looms after about 5 to 10 minutes. So you really can't use them as night sights. I think they try and do their best. I've always kind of felt that once these are imported to the US, HK USA really needs to change these out to something else. But if you buy one of these, I highly recommend you change out the sights yourself to something a lot nicer. The last thing about this gun that I don't like is that it doesn't have a safety. And for me, it kind of looks weird. Now, I know this trigger is designed to not need a safety, but for me, having all this area on both sides of the grip look a little bit weird. It doesn't look very balanced, but it's also not just a look thing, it's a functional thing. And let me show you my personal P30SK, which is double action, single action. And as you can see, we do have the safety here on the side, and I have made it ambidextrous. And for me, that has a much better look and a lot better functionality. And I still think with the LEM trigger, you could put a safety on that, which would probably just prevent you from being able to pull the trigger back. And it would add another safety for those people in law enforcement that want as many safeties as possible. That might not be a gripe for many people, but for me, it is. But now let's talk about something about this gun that's neutral, and that's going to be the trigger, because I'm not really sure how I feel about this. So I want to adjust the camera. I want to show you how this trigger works a little bit, and I do want to measure how heavy it is. So let me go ahead and adjust the camera, and let's compare it to my P30SK, which is double action and single action. So let's get some close-ups on these triggers and how they work and how they're a little bit different. So let me drop the magazines first and of course safety check the firearm. Here is the one with the LEM trigger. There's no ammunition in the magazine, and of course we will visually inspect the chamber. Looks like we are good. And let me get my personal P30SK out, drop its magazine, no ammunition, and of course visually inspect the chamber. So let's go back to the LEM trigger, and I was telling you that you get the long double action pull with the weight of a single action pull. And so as you can see, with barely any effort whatsoever, I can pull this trigger back and it brings the hammer back. And then you get to what I will call a wall, but it's not really a wall because you can pull it back even further. And this is the odd thing about this. There's where the wall would be, but I can pull it back a little bit further. The hammer comes back just a little bit more, and then the hammer drops. And of course, the slide would cycle and you're back in this weird pull again. Some people are going to like this, some people are not going to like this, and on the Texas Gun Vault 2 where I've shown off this gun, people that have shot these have said they don't shoot them well, so I'm curious how I am going to do. But let's compare that to this one here, and this has a traditional double action, single action trigger in it with a decocker, and the decocker is here in the back. So if the hammer is down and I pull this trigger, it's a lot heavier. Just like a traditional double action, get it back, and there it goes. And then when the slide cycles, the hammer stays back and you have your traditional reset. And then you can pull the trigger back to the wall. It's very predictable. And you also have a safety as well. And this safety can be engaged whether the hammer is down or up. And this is the variant 3, and this one, as I said, is my personal one. Couple things to note between these two variants. It's not just what's in the gun, but the guns themselves are a little bit different. You can see the slide stops are a little bit different in design, and the cutouts for them are a little bit different, and that is true on both sides, as you can see. And of course here on the back you can see my personal one does have that decocker right there. This one does not have that. So there are a few differences within the frames of these two guns. So now let me go ahead and get out the Lyman trigger pull weight gauge, and we're going to see what this trigger is all about when it comes to its weight. So let me turn this on and of course clear the averages out, and then let's rack that slide, and here we go. According to the website, this should be about 5.5 pounds, but let's see if that is the case. And our first pull, 5 pounds, 1.4 ounces. 5 pounds, 6.2 ounces. 5 pounds, 7.3 ounces. 5 pounds, 5.9 ounces. And finally we have 5 pounds, 7.5 ounces, which gives us an average of 5 pounds, 5.6 ounces. So right what the website claims it will be. And that's from HK's own spec sheet. That's actually quite impressive. So this is kind of an odd thing. It definitely feels different. And I can see why many people struggle with this, because it's not a double action pull. It's not a single action pull. It's something in between. And even if you like to ride the reset, when you do pull this trigger back to that wall, it doesn't break like a traditional trigger. You got to pull it back just a little bit more, and I can see how that could possibly throw you off. So I'm kind of excited to see if this thing shoots well or poorly for me. So let's go to the range and find out. As always, I'll start with the target at 7 yards. I'm gonna load up 2 of these 10-round magazines and just put my first shots through this and get to experience the LEM trigger and see what it's all about. So let's go to the range. And so we're starting out with a decent group, but it's definitely low. So I don't know if it's the sights or just this weird kind of odd mechanical trigger. It definitely is like nothing else that I have ever shot. But now I kind of know what to expect. I'm not having any issues with the gun, and the gun does shoot comfortably, but that's pretty much par for the course for all these HK pistols with the Batman grip. All right, so now let's double the distance on this target. Now that I'm kind of used to what this trigger is about, let me put another magazine through this, see how the group opens up at a further distance, and if I can figure anything else about this trigger and how to shoot it better. And that group definitely opened up a lot, but all of the rounds were on the center circle on that IDPA silhouette. So before you go type in the comment section, you need to go get training. Understand, this is my first time ever shooting one of these LEM triggers. And if you're watching the Texas Gun Vault for the first time, please go watch one of my other range reports where I shoot the guns way better than this. So just going and getting training might not be the actual solution to this problem, because I shoot double action, single action guns really, really well. And this trigger is like nothing I have ever shot before. I'm trying to shoot it a little bit like a double action trigger, sometimes like a single action trigger. I can't figure out the staging. I think that has a lot to do with the accuracy I'm having with this gun. But it's not bad because all those rounds were still on the center part of that target. So now I want to take the target out to 20 or 25 yards, about as far as I can at this indoor range. And I want to take as much of the human element out of the equation as possible. So I'm going to shoot this from a barrier on the bench and see how I do. So here we go, another magazine, 20, 25 yards, and just see how I can do at this distance. And for me, this gun is shooting way low and to the left. And I already know some people are going to tell me, well, you need to do this. When you shoot this way, that's what's going to cause it. I know that. I'm actually holding really high on the sights. I'm holding almost where the head is on that silhouette. I'm really taking my time, and I have the pad of my finger directly on that trigger shoe. I know what I'm doing, but this gun is just shooting way low and to the left for me. Some of it could be the very short sight radius. I usually don't shoot guns this small great at those longer distances, but also the staging of this trigger is just really weird. It's not bad, it's just not what I am used to. So the next test I want to do is the hollow point test. Obviously, if you're going to own this gun, most likely you're going to carry it, or maybe you own it for home defense, and you want to know, are hollow points going to run in this thing? I'm pretty sure they are, but of course, we have to test it. So let's go back to the range and see how this gun works with hollow points. And as expected, we had zero issues and hiccups with the hollow point ammunition. In fact, I think the gun was a much better shooter and more accurate with it, so that loading definitely seems to be what this gun prefers. So if you're going to carry this gun or use it for home defense, of course, run hollow points in it. You're not going to have any issues whatsoever. So the next test I want to do is the quick magazine change test and the shoot fast test. I want to make sure, number one, that I can shoot this LEM trigger fast. It's kind of weird with this reset and this longer pull, but it's lighter. And of course, I want to test this gun's ability to drop the magazine and get a fresh one in there as quickly as I can. I really like these paddles on the side, so we'll just have to see how I do. It is a little bit different with this trigger and these paddles. So let's go to the range, see how fast I can shoot this gun, drop the magazine, and get it back in action. And so finally I've discovered my first issue with this gun. I really do like these paddles, but like when I shoot a Glock 26 or some of those micro subcompacts, when it comes to the base plates of these magazines, they actually get caught up right here on the fleshy part of my palm. I got kind of bigger, meatier hands, and when I try to drop these magazines, sometimes it's the pinky extension and sometimes it's the magazine base plate on this side. It gets caught in the palm of my hand and I can't strip that magazine out fast enough and I stumble with it. But this is something that's very common for me when it comes to other guns of this size. So if you have larger hands, this might be an issue. But now that I know to expect it, I'll try to do better. So here we go. Let's go back to the range and let's try this again. And there we go, and that was a lot better. Now, when it comes to shooting this gun fast, I think I did okay, but this trigger does not lend itself to very fast shooting, in my opinion, as compared to a traditional double action, single action trigger. And that actually might not be a bug, but a feature, and something that's built into this gun, causing you to need to be more deliberate with your shots. As I said, this is a gun designed for law enforcement. It's not designed for competition shooting. It's not really designed for civilians, although civilians can carry it just fine. So as I said, this might be a feature and not a bug, but I had a harder time trying to get a good rhythm with this trigger. So what are my final thoughts on the HK P30SK, the subcompact P30? Well, I will tell you, after shooting this gun, I definitely still prefer double action, single action triggers. Maybe it's because I'm used to them, but this trigger is definitely weird and different. If this was the only thing I shot, I think I could get used to it. For me, the accuracy on this particular gun is not that good. Now, as I said, I do own my own personal P30SK, and I shoot this one really well. So is it the gun or is it the trigger? I think it is the trigger. Now, I know a lot of gun people are going to want to gravitate towards this trigger because it's kind of the special HK trigger. And you're going to think, well, it's designed for law enforcement, and I want that. But this is going to be one of those things where I'm going to recommend you go out and try it before you buy it. Now, I've shot a lot of guns. This is not bad. This gun does have functional accuracy. I was always on the target with my shots, and because this is not a range gun, I'm not worried about the accuracy at 20 or 25 yards. This is a gun for closer up engagements when you are concealed carrying. And in that capacity, the gun worked and had functional accuracy for me. It's not a tack driver, but I wish the gun was a little bit more accurate for me and shot a little bit better like my standard double action, single action version. And so because of that, I would personally tend to lean away from the LEM trigger unless it's all I'm going to shoot and all that I'm going to own. It's an okay gun. It's definitely high quality, but it's not super accurate. And as I said, I would recommend that you go out and try it before you buy it if you're interested in the Variant 1 version of the P30. So on my star system, how would I rate the P30SK by HNK? Well, I am only going to give this gun 3 out of 5 stars. It's perfectly fine. No issues with it whatsoever except the magazine when I dropped it, and that's because of my hands and the size of my hands more than anything else. It had nothing to do with the gun. The gun is high quality. It is built well. It is well designed. It functioned great, no issues. It just might not be the gun for me based on my hand size and my preferences when it comes to how I like a trigger to work, feel, and function. But 3 out of 5 stars. It gave me okay accuracy, but I think it's the trigger and just something I would have to overcome and personally train with. And yes, I did use the train word, but it's just training in the sense of taking it to the range and getting the muscle memory of figuring out how this thing operates so you can be very consistent with it. So what do you guys think? Do you guys own any HK pistols with the LEM trigger in it, the law enforcement module? And when you first shot it, did you have the same issues that I did? Does the gun shoot accurate for you? Let me know in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching. Dedicated mostly for law. To go over to his website, which I will link in the comment. Oh my God. Come on, Jason. Avoid. So let's talk about the things that I like and don't.